need to be a fundamental optimist, because the reality is, if you look at the statistics, if you start a company today, there's only a 5% chance that it will still be around in 5 years. So there's a 95% failure rate. So you need to believe that you're going to beat those odds, because either your idea is great, or you know how to do something different or better, and you're so good that you're going to be able to cope with that. You also need to be very adaptive, in the sense that things are going to happen very differently from the script that you usually imagine was in terms of the way it plays out. And so as soon as something is thrown your way, you need to adapt, adjust, and always think or rethink your model. The reality is I never really share them, because to your employees, you always have to be cheerful. I mean, even if you're about to miss payroll, you're like, no, everything's going to be great, the money's about to arrive, et cetera. In terms of your own doubts, I think through what are the different downsides, or not downsides, but there are different scenarios, different things you can do, and I evaluate the scenarios, and sometimes I might be wrong, but the reality is you just try. You try and you see if it works out, and if it doesn't, it's okay, you move on. And if your company fails, it's okay. You'll have learned something and have had a fantastic experience, and the reality is you can probably go back and get another job, and maybe at even better position because of all the experience you'll have accumulated as a small business owner. Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'd rather invest in someone who's created a company and failed than someone who's never created a company, because he will know all the mistakes not to make. Because I would argue that the job I do today is pretty much exactly the same job I was doing 10 years ago when I started my first large startup. The difference is now I don't make all the same mistakes. The most difficult thing is usually raising the money, because when you're starting a business, especially the first time around, you have no reputation, you have no track record, you usually have very little money of your own, and so understanding how to raise money, if you need to raise money, and how to go about it is key. And the first time around, I made all the mistakes. I'd read that you need a big 80-page complex business plan and financial model, which I wrote, and I was calling these venture capitalists, right, and emailing them the business plan. None of them ever replied, never got a call back. It took me a long time to realize that they don't have time to read a business plan that's 80 pages long. You need like a 10, 15-page PowerPoint. You need to be introduced by people who know them, and frankly, because you're such an inexperienced entrepreneur, you need to show that you can execute, because they don't want to take the execution risk. So you need to build the site or your company, you need to have some revenue, some clients, you need to show that you can actually deliver before you raise money. And then you should go and raise money, using that 10, 15-page PowerPoint in the introductions. The reality is I don't think that much preparation is required. I think you go and do it. The only aspect that requires real strategic thinking is the business you're entering. You need to make sure it's the right business. What's the market size? What are the margins in the business? Is it scalable? How much capital do I really need to enter the business? So I have my 9 business selection criteria, and I make sure that every idea that I consider entering, I've read through these criteria. But once that's it, I just go for it. I incorporate. I try to find the key employees I'm going to need, and then you try. The criteria is somewhat personal, because they're related to my interests, but they're what's a $1 billion market opportunity. And the reason is you need a big idea, otherwise you're not really fundable. No investor is going to fund you for a $20 or $30 million business. Number 2, what has a valid business model? I want to know from the get-go who I'm going to charge, what I'm going to charge, and what the gross and net margins are, because you're much more likely to be successful than if you try to figure out how to make money as you go along. There are a few counterexamples of that. I mean, Google was one of them. Number 3, I don't want an idea that requires more than 1 or 2 million in seed money and more than 5 to 15 million in Series A money. And the reason is, if it requires much more capital than that, you're not going to be able to raise it, or it's going to dilute you too much. And it might mean that your idea is better served by being within a large organization than that of a startup. Number 4, I like an idea that's scalable. I mean, I have nothing against companies like Starbucks or Walmart, but my key success factor in life is not, managing 1 million employees. And so I like ideas that can grow rapidly with relatively small teams. Number 5, I like to be in a business that is rapidly growing, because a rising tide raises all boats, and it increases the your appeal to investors, to potential partners, to consumers, etc. Number 6, I like to be in a business that has very little risk of margin compression or disintermediation. You don't want to be in business where one customer accounts for all your sales and one supplier for all your costs, because they can replace you or they can compress your margins very easily. Number 7, I like to be in a market or in an idea that I know how to execute or I can learn rapidly. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm not in biotech. They're brilliant ideas, but I would not have the first clue of how to evaluate the different ideas in the business. Number 8, I want to be in a business where I can be one of the top 3 successful players in the business. Most of the economics in business accrue to the number 1, 2, 3 companies. So you want to make sure that you win. I don't necessarily mean win on a global level, but at least win in a selected market that you go after, be it a neighborhood, a city, a country, or the world. And 9, maybe most important, I want to do an idea that I love to do, something that excites me, something that's going to keep me up at night and keep me interested and going even in the moments of doubt. Many people would tell you this is a bad time. The economy is about to turn, the capital is becoming less available, valuations are declining. But I can tell you why it's a great time. In those environments where people are becoming more of risk averse, this is the time you go and take risks. This is the time where you put it out there, because you're going to face a lot less competition. And so once your product's out there, if it's any good, you're going to succeed without anyone rushing behind you to copy it. And so you'll have a multi-year lead when by the time the other people become aggressive or interested enough in copying you. Well, luck is definitely a factor. It really, really helps to be lucky. I mean, I think all the businesses that succeed, have really hardworking entrepreneurs that are gritty and passionate. In fact, I would argue that grit, passion, and tenacity are much more important than intelligence. Intelligence is probably useful for selecting the right idea, but once you get going, the strategy usually doesn't change that much. It's all tactics. It's all details, blocking, tackling, making sure everything is right. So it's all about grit, tenacity, and passion, and then being the right time at the right place, with the right skills, and getting lucky. There are so many reasons a company can fail. I mean, the environment might be too competitive. It might have the wrong business model. The entrepreneurs might have overextended themselves. I mean, I don't think there's a thread for why people fail. I think there are billions of reasons why people fail, but a few reasons why people succeed.